Yeah, what it do, what it ain't, what it is. It's your boy, Mr. Wilson. We back live from the break room, and you know what time it is, man. We gotta keep it a buck. We gotta keep it a brick. We gotta keep it a whole hundo. You dig? Today, you know what I'm saying? Breaking news. Breaker, engine number 9. Yeah, so we got breaking news, man. Terry Bradshaw is an official hater. You know, he's probably been an official hater, but to make the statement that he made on yesterday or whenever he decided to crawl from under whatever rock he's been under, the statement that he chose to make was in defense of Kenny Pickett. And I'm trying to understand how that's even possible. You know, I have conversations with people and they always talk about, oh man, you know, Kenny this, Kenny that. I said, Kenny chose his fate. Kenny didn't want to be in the Berg no more. What aren't you getting? He said he wanted out. And why did he want out? He wanted out simply because there was going to be competition for the starting position of QB1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, make that make sense. I mean, are we not, you know, keeping up with the expression iron sharpens iron? You know, like, was he afraid of competition? Because in order for him to start, the Steelers was actually his best place to be. I said that last year. Even with the trade to the Eagles, I said he just committed career suicide. He just became a journeyman. Before I knew the Eagles was even going to trade him, I said he just decided to be a journeyman. Instead of just staying at Pittsburgh and fighting out for whatever, he could have been a backup like Mason Rudolph. You dig what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like he was a complete bum. Like, I didn't feel that way about Kenny Pickett. I had hope in Kenny Pickett, but Tiny Hands didn't get it done on more than one occasion. And even in making that statement, I had compassion for Tiny Hands. I really did. You know, he was dealing with Matt Canada. I've been to many Steeler games, and I have never been to a game where we were screaming from the stands to fire someone. Now, someone a little bit older than me may have, you know what I mean? But, you know, we were screaming fire Canada. I mean, I got a fire Canada sign from the game that I kind of stole, but yeah. I got a fire Canada sign. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I have compassion for Kenny and the things he had to endure as a young professional athlete. But at the end of the day, he chose to leave. And I'm going to pull up the official statement. A first rounder got rid of him after 2 years, and they're still looking for a quarterback. They didn't even do anything to build around him, Bradshaw said. You draft a quarterback in the first round, he is going to be successful, Bradshaw said. But you've got to surround him with the kind of talent he had in college, and they didn't do that. And they call him a bust. First of all, it wasn't like the guy played with Megatron or nothing, nobody like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's be real here. I love Pittsburgh. I love everything Pittsburgh. I'll always root for everything Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh versus West Virginia, the backyard brawl. I'm rooting for Pittsburgh. You dig? But we're not going to sit here and act like Kenny Pickett had the roster of an Ohio State University or Michigan University or Alabama or Florida or Georgia or the list goes on. We're not going to sit here and act like he had that kind of talent around him in college. And to be quite honest with you, we could say he had about the same level of talent on the Steelers that he had in college, if not more. Should have been, if George Pickens' mindset was right, he's a number 1 wide receiver. But his mind ain't right. You know what I'm saying? We had Deontay Johnson. Same thing. Well, actually, I take that back. I don't think Deontay had the talent that George Pickens had. Deontay could run the hell out of a route. He could run some routes. But like the kid in Little Giants that couldn't catch the football, that was Deontay Johnson. You need to put some stickum on his shit because he could not catch worth a damn. You know what I mean? And so that was the disparity there. Like, you know, you got Deontay Johnson, who's a great route runner. You got you got George Pickens, who's just a freak athlete. Like, you know, he wasn't the best at necessarily anything, but he did like a lot of things well, except run block, because he wasn't trying to. He didn't want to. And he was giving zero effort, and he made that known. He didn't give a damn. He wasn't doing it. So to say that you give him the same talent that you give him in college, you know what I mean? That's a slap in the face to the Steelers right there, because he had better talent with the Steelers than he did in college. Najee Harris was a better running back than what he had in college. Matter of fact, one second. All right, so I wanted to fact check myself just to make sure I wasn't bugging. So I just feel like the statement that Terry Bradshaw made was completely asinine, because he's acting as if Kenny Pickett had no help. Kenny Pickett had plenty of help. In fact, Kenny Pickett had more help with the Steelers than he did with the Panthers. Okay, so we can start with his wide receiver, Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison was drafted in the first round of the 2023 draft to the Minnesota Vikings. He had a couple of great games, either last year or the year before. I think Jefferson was hurt. Yeah, I think it was last year. He had a couple of good games, and I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. Actually, no, that might have been the year before. But either way, Addison is good. Addison is good. We're not going to sit here and hate on the young man. He's great. So first round pick, and he's picked 23 overall in the 2023 draft. The best, and that was the best wide receiver he had while he was at the Pitt Panthers. So his best running back was Quadri Allison. And Quadri Allison was drafted in the 2019 draft, 152nd overall. And he was drafted to the Falcons. And actually, we had him last year, and he ended up getting cut. So, not to say he's not good. I guess, you know, I want to say Cordell Patterson was like our third running back or something like that. So, semantics, man. Like, you know, he probably could have been here if Cordell Patterson wasn't here or something like that. So, I don't think the young man is a scrub by any means. I just think that he didn't fit in with what the Steelers were trying to do. You know, they were trying to use Cordell Patterson like a Swiss Army knife. You know, he did some tight end stuff. He did some halfback stuff. He did some, you know, punt return, kick return, that sort of thing. He was a multi-use tool. He's a phenomenal talent. So I get it. But let's go to who Kenny Pickett had in Pittsburgh. I mean, George Pickens. Well, I'm going to come back to George. Running back was Najee. Najee was drafted 2021, and Najee was a first round pick, drafted 24th overall, and that was in the 2021 draft. George Pickens, he was drafted in the second round, 52nd overall, in the 2022 draft. Do you know who the first round pick was in 2022? You guessed it. Kenny Pickett. So they might have gotten George Pickens in the first round if it had not been for Kenny Pickett. So we could put George Pickens and Jordan Addison on the same playing field, and Najee was a first round pick. He's smoking, oh boy. So it's like, what we talking about, Terry Bradshaw? Shut your old hating ass up. Like, all you do is hate, bro. All I've known Terry Bradshaw to do with the Steelers is hate. I'm not old enough to know when he was with the Super Steelers. He was the blonde bomber, and we respect him for getting 4 rings and that sort of thing. He laid the foundation, he laid the legacy. But all I know Terry Bradshaw to be is a hater, like straight up. That's all he do is hate. And it started with Big Ben. And like I said, like earlier, if we holding people accountable and we asking why the offensive legends aren't coming back around, yeah, we can go back to Terry Bradshaw. He ain't been in Pittsburgh in 40 years. I don't know of a Terry Bradshaw sighting in Pittsburgh outside of him working for Fox Sports or whatever. And I don't even know offhand how many times he did that. So, like, dude just been hating on the Steelers for a long time. And I think the hate to Ben was so egregious. But it made sense. Ben was the first quarterback that really came along that could threaten his legacy. Like, if we had our stuff together, I truly believe Ben could have got 4 rings. And so, I mean, we should have had 3 had Rashard Mendenhall not fumbled the ball on a game-winning drive to give our defense a chance to stop Green Bay. Defense would have had to get a stop, but I think that defense would have got a stop. We just had to put some points on the board. And Rashard Mendenhall fumbled the ball, and then he had to come into Jesus moment, and he realized the game wasn't for him, and he retired, and he wanted to write TV shows and shit. So yeah, like, Ben was the first quarterback that came along that really, truly, genuinely could have threatened his legacy. And I do believe Bradshaw was hating on Ben for that. None of this stuff gets talked about. Like, I don't hear people talking about stuff like this. So, I'm interested to hear other people's opinions on it. But yeah, like, Ben never got love from Bradshaw. All Bradshaw did was hate on Ben, bro. That's it. And I think it's sad because instead of seeing someone, think of it like your college or your university or even your high school. People have pride in their high school, their colleges and things like that. Or even their hometown. Like, you want to stay relevant. And if you stay relevant through someone else's actions, that's what you want. You, like, the Steelers the foundation of the Steelers legacy, Bradshaw was a part of that. He will always be honored as that. You can't show the young kids some love. You can't show the young bulls some love. You can't put them on game and, show them the ropes, show them how to get down, show them how to be professional. You can't do that. And we know Ben had his issues early on, but Ben tightened up. He tightened up. He did better. And I respect him for that. But Bradshaw legit was hating on Ben for no other reason than the guy threatened his legacy. And I do believe that we should have had 3 with Ben and we could have got 4. You know what I'm saying? If we had our ducks in a row, I'm talking about, you cannot convince me that the AB and Le'Veon era with Martavis Bryant, we should not have gotten at least 1. That's 4 right there. We could have had 5. If Martavis Bryant could have stayed off weed, if Vontae's Burfict punk ass wasn't hunting our players with bounties, you know what I mean? Like, we could have had 5 with Ben. Real talk. Straight like that. That's no delusion. That's real talk. We had the most potent offense in the league. And we was doing it with a trash defense. That was the AB and Le'Veon era was the worst era for defense in Steelers. Well, I won't say in Steelers history. In my lifetime, I'm talking like, the late 80s. Well, one in the late 80s, but from what I remember as far as football, the 90s, you know what I'm saying, the early 2000s, man, the 2010s were terrible. Like the defense was terrible in the 2010s, man. That's the Artie Burns. That's Antoine Blake. And I loved Antoine Blake. I just feel like he was playing out of position. He was too small to be on the outside. If we could have used him like a Beanie Bishop, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would have loved to have used him like that, like a nickelback or something like that. But he was too small to be on the outside, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, who else? Mike Mitchell. I mean, that secondary was, man, oh my goodness. It was so bad. It was so bad. I mean, it was so bad. Like, so yeah, that was the worst era for defense the Steelers have ever had that I recall. And they were still out there just punishing Bama's because they was outscoring everybody. The offense was lethal. The offense was lethal. So you can't tell me we shouldn't have had 5. But it's almost like Bradshaw comes off as like he's jealous because he feel like he's going to be forgotten about. But I mean, if nothing else, those two would have been like celebrated. I mean, forever. But they both will be regardless because they both have, polar fans. So, what I'm saying right now is like going against the gospel in some people's eyes, but it's the truth. Terry Bradshaw's hating. And, it's pretty sad. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if something happened between him and the Rooneys. I don't know if he came out like, what's that boy, Caleb Williams? He wanted like some shares of the team or something like that. And they told him to kick rocks or something like that. I don't know. If anybody has any insight, I would love to know. I would love to research that because that is truly a mystery. You see Mean Joe, you see Mel Blount, Lynn Swan, you see, the other like legends on defense come back. I mean, Stallsworth, offense, he came back. Swan came back. You know what I'm saying? You see these guys, periodically, the ones that are still around, you see them. Franco was beloved. Like, I never met Franco. To my knowledge, my dad never met Franco, but Franco was his favorite player. Franco was his favorite. Mean Joe was his second favorite. But Franco was beloved in Western PA. If you know, you know. And most of y'all know. I love hearing the stories of Franco, how he would go to the strip district and, just like a regular person and sit down and have food as if he wasn't Franco. And that was until the day he died. Franco was beloved. Franco was always around. So like, my question I asked, Franco was one of those offensive legends that came around. He was always around, but and Ramon Foster, he's still around. He's doing his sports media thing. I love hearing his podcast and things as well. But yeah, man, we need more offensive guys to come back. I mean, you could not convince me that Le'Veon wouldn't have been a lifer. AB wouldn't have been a lifer. Martavis couldn't stay off of weed. If he would have stayed off of weed, man, those three, the killer bees, big dog, with Big Ben, big dog. You cannot tell me those guys wouldn't have ran the league for years. But in between injuries, Le'Veon had a series of injuries again. He was targeted. You know what I'm saying? From Reggie Nelson to Vontaze Burfict, he was targeted. Both of those injuries were targeted. You know what I'm saying? Because Le'Veon, man, he was so dangerous, man. He was so lethal. Name one other running back that's doing wide receiver routes like that. that at that time. No one was doing it at that time. Now the Cowboys started using Ezekiel Elliott like that. Like him and Zeke, they began using Ezekiel Elliott the same way they used Le'Veon, and they had tremendous success. But there wasn't many running backs doing that. Not the guys. They had thousand yards receiving, or they was pushing 1,000 yards receiving, and 1,000 yards rushing plus. Like, that's insane. So between the injuries with Le'Veon, and then he had his weed issues, you know what I'm saying, and then Martavis Bryant, it was just weed with him, you know what I mean, and then at the end, AB was like the perfect predecessor to Hines Ward. And I tell people this all the time. If you actually studied and watched, they was grooming AB to replace Hines. So when I asked Ben, when I say I asked of Ben to be the mentor, help forge the way, help create that solidarity, whatever, at that position before you leave, it's because I saw other guys do it. The linebacker room, that's all they doing. You know what I'm saying? Harrison groomed TJ. TJ grooms, helping groom Highsmith. Highsmith and TJ are helping groom Herbig. You know what I'm saying? And now we just got even more guys coming in that are being groomed. Like that linebacker core. And then even before Harrison was Porter. Before Porter, you had the Greg Lloyds and the Kevin Greens, and you could just keep going on and on and on with linebackers. Like you really can. You know what I mean? I will say this: Ike Taylor tried to help Artie Burns, but it wasn't no helping that. You know what I mean? So, Joey Porter Jr. is like, he's a bright spot that we haven't had really since Ike. So and now you got Minka and Elliott, man, they were a great duo. You know what I'm saying? Until like whatever happened, everything fell apart. They was doing their thing. But, and so Minka kind of was like just a freak athlete in himself. And so, everybody kind of looked at him as like a Troy replacement. And then when Elliott came around, he was like a Ryan Clark replacement. So it's like, oh man, like, yeah, let's go. let's get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just, and then you can go across the D line and do the same thing, and just like, I really hate what happened to Stephon Tuitt's brother, rest in peace. And, how he had to walk away from the game. But the D line, they groom guys as well, so they've been a little bit more revolving door though, and then I forgot guys like the Lamar Woodsons and Spillane and Jason Worlds. Like we had Vince Williams, we had like linebackers, bro, like. And it's just, then not to include Ryan Shazier. The linebackers, man, I'm sorry. I might have to do a video on just linebackers, bro. Like, it is unreal the amount of talent the Steelers have drafted at linebacker. It's better than, we're known as like wide receiver U or whatever. Not wide receiver U, but we draft really good at wide receiver, man. Steelers draft phenomenal at linebackers. They always have. With the exception of Devin Bush, he and in his defense, he was balling until he had the injury. You know what I'm saying? He had that injury, then it was like, damn. Well, that's that. And he's still in the league. He just, he kind of bouncing around, but Steelers draft really well at linebacker, man. Just like they draft really good at wide receiver, which is why I don't understand the panic. We need a guy. Pittsburgh has never done what they did in terms of going to get a big name player, you know, and bringing him in. They've always drafted guys and just fortified the culture from within. You know what I'm saying? And if it worked out, it worked out. If it didn't, we're going back to the draft board. They didn't, you know, Jerome Bettis was an anomaly. You know what I mean? Because they traded for him from the Rams. There are guys here and there that were like anomalies, but they are few and far in between. And in the matter of 2 years, Omar Khan was like, yeah, like just free throw that. And he just out here just, you know, he's scamming for draft picks. You know what I'm saying? He out here fleecing whoever they can fleece. You know, people asking like, why hasn't the deal got done with TJ? I said, because he's shopping to see if he can fleece someone. I truly believe that. If someone's willing to give up 2 first rounders in a third round or something like that, he gonna do it. He gonna pull that trigger. I mean, I will say this. The guy is making some good moves. If anybody Omar Khan, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the con man, like that guy, he is out there making some moves. And I know he's not done, but I am excited to see what else he does, you know, either during training camp or like, you know, in the preseason or whenever, you know, but before the trade deadline. I'm curious to see what he does. But yeah, you know, Bradshaw is way off on this one, man. Kenny Pickett had help. Kenny Pickett didn't help himself. Kenny Pickett ran away from competition. And, you know, he ran away from competition and made matters worse for himself. Yeah, he went to the Eagles. Yeah, he won a Super Bowl as a backup. He came in and he kneeled down. You know what I'm saying? But we all know he wasn't the starter. Nobody's going to change that narrative. I mean, they could trade TJ somewhere and he win a Super Bowl. But we know TJ is going to be a major contributor in acquiring that Super Bowl. You know, barring injury, of course. So, yeah, like, let's stop playing games. Then he got traded from the Eagles. The Browns picked him up. Browns got 8 quarterbacks. Browns got as many quarterbacks as we got tight ends. That's not a good thing. And one of which has a major marketing. He's like a major marketing mogul. You know what I'm saying? Like Shador is all over, you know what I'm saying, YouTube spaces and social media spaces. And, you know, he has his own media team. Like, you know, I ain't mad at it. You know, you got Flacco. We know Flacco's a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett as long as he can stay healthy. You know what I mean? So Deshaun Watson's, as much as people don't want to admit it, he's a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, he's in another bad spot. And then what's going to end up happening if he doesn't start here, or if he's like second or third string, the Browns are going to trade him somewhere else for a piece. It's just going to, or they're going to release him and he's going to be somewhere else riding the bench unless somebody get hurt and he get a chance to start. He made himself a journeyman. I don't understand how Terry Bradshaw don't see that. I don't. But he did. And it is what it is. You know, there were still people that was rooting for Kenny, myself included. I was still rooting for the kid. I wanted to see him do great. I felt as though if we get him a better offensive coordinator, because, you know, Kenny Pickett was doing stuff. He wouldn't do nothing all game long. Fourth quarter Kenny, or whatever they used to call him. Yeah, fourth quarter be like a different story. I don't know if he was changing plays in the huddle or what, but he ignored Matt Canada one game, that game winner to George Pickens, I want to say. And when everybody was going crazy and Canada was just sitting there looking stupid, like it was rumored that he did something complete opposite of what Matt Canada asked him to do on that play. So yeah, like I felt as though he just needed a better like management, if you will, better coaching staff. And, you know, they fired him and they was going to bring in somebody else. And, the thing that I started to turn tides on Kenny went, and then really quick. And, and then when he wasn't doing nothing all game long, Kenny Pickett was always hurt. Like, he was always hurt. Like, the guy is brittle. Like, he was always hurt. Concussion protocol. It was a game against the Browns when some turf came up and got in his eyes. So, oh boy, he about to be out. That's the game the Browns beat us. I want to say they beat us in overtime. I was so mad, bro. Like, yeah. So, that's the year before last when that happened. And, dude was always hurt. Like, he was just always hurt. And so, essentially, people was like, oh, man, it's not right. The Steelers, well, they tried to let Money Mitch. They tried to, get Money Mitch to be the guy, and they brought him in. They completely shitted on Mason Rudolph, man. And I'm on record for saying they completely disrespected Mason Rudolph. You know what I'm saying? He did not deserve to be pushed to the back burner, because if we're talking about culture, if we're talking about, stuff like that, Mason Rudolph was here. Mason Rudolph deserved an opportunity to be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But they drafted Kenny in the first round, and they was hell-bent on making him the starter no matter what. They brought in Mitch Trubisky to I don't know, hold it down until Kenny was ready, and he got in and he was looking like shit. Not once was it ever. It's like, did they ever consider like letting Mason come in the game? Aside from the Myles Garrett situation, Mason didn't do terrible in that time he was starting. That Myles Garrett situation was bad, but outside of that, you could just tell he was a young kid trying to find his way. They never gave him another chance. They kept him on the roster, but they never gave him another chance. And that year when I want to say Kenny Pickett was out hurt again, and Mitch had to start, and we ended up losing like 3 games in a row or something like that. I mean, I want to say I know one of the 3 was the Patriots, because I was traveling for work and stuff, so I was trying to keep up. But at that time I was trying to keep up, but I couldn't. But they put Mason in against the Colts. And we should have won that. If he would have started, we've lost to the Colts like the last 2 or 3 years in a row, right? If they had started Mason that game, we would have won that game. But Mason started the next game, and I want to say we went on like a 4-game win streak to give Tom another winning season and to make it to the playoffs. Now, we went to the Buffalo Bill game up in Buffalo. Man, it was a great time. You know what I'm saying? My man Chubo, I see him all the time. We talk and stuff. I keep in contact with him to this day. Good dude. You know what I'm saying? He's just a diehard Bills fan. And, he show love. We talk shit, what I'm saying? We keep it pushing. And that's why I like going to away games too, because you just never know. You run into dope fans everywhere, and you keep in contact with them. You do fantasy football with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, your team make a crazy trade, their team make a crazy trade or pick up or draft or whatever, and you just keep in contact with those people, and I think it's dope. You know what I'm saying? That's why I like going to away games too. I don't just stay at home games. I go to away games too. But yeah, Mason got us in the playoffs. Rudolph saved Christmas and all this stuff, you know what I'm saying? And I believe his first start was Seattle. I could be mistaken though, but that was the game where Kenny, he didn't dress because he didn't want to be on the bench, so he didn't dress. And I'll never forget, one of the media personnel asked him, they like, have you learned anything from Mason or anything? Like, he like, no. And you could tell his whole demeanor was, I'm the starter. I ain't learned anything from this dude. And I began to see things then that showed me, yeah, I don't think this is going to work. Because he had a bratty mentality, an entitled mentality. You know what I'm saying? I know we all know people like that, whether it be family or coworkers or whoever. You know what I'm saying? They just have this entitled spirit. And that goes against the mentality of cities like Pittsburgh, where you get it how you live. When you get up, you bust your ass, you go get that bread, you take care of your family by any means. He didn't embody that at all. He did not. Philadelphia is another city like that. Baltimore's like that. Like there are some tough, gritty cities where the fan bases are just as tough and gritty. You know what I mean? And he didn't embody that. It's like I saw right then and there, yeah, I don't think this is gonna work. Because anybody that's successful will tell you they can learn anything from anyone. You can learn something from a child. And Kenny Pickett sat there that day and essentially he played himself out of a starting position in the National Football League. Because next thing granted, we lost to Buffalo. They picked up Russ. They didn't know what they was going to do with Russ, but Russ was available. One of the better quarterbacks available at the time. Yeah, he was coming off a rough season, but he was one of the better quarterbacks at the time. So they pick him up. I want out. What? I want out. Okay. The next thing you know, Justin Fields is on the team. And, Omar Khan, I think he did something that nobody even picked up on. I don't think they ever planned to re-sign Russ or Justin Fields. I think that was just like, we'll see what happens. If it works, cool. If it don't, we got those picks. Omar Khan been stacking picks like he playing spades. And he about to start cutting. He about to run the table on somebody. So, I'm excited where we are right now. But I wanted to come on and talk to y'all because I just feel like, I was like, man, Terry Bradshaw, you bugging, bro. You are bugging. And so yeah, man, but how y'all feel, man? We about a week and a half, 2 weeks out from training camp. So, I'm looking forward to that. Trying to decide if we're going to go up for a day or two. Cause I've never had that experience of going to training camp. So I am curious as to like, how people feel about it. Like, what do you do? Like, do you just drive from the city? Cause I know it's not that far from the city. Do you just drive from Pittsburgh and stay up there for the day and go back? Do you get a room? Do you camp? Probably a campsite somewhere around there, I'm sure. And everybody know now. I'm camping now, man. I got the gear. I'm making posts about camping. I'm out here in the woods with no cell phone, no internet, no nothing. You know what I'm saying? Just going hard in the woods. You dig? You know what I'm saying? But I enjoyed myself. And it is a great way to unplug and just unwind from the stressors of life. You sit back with a beer, light a cigar. If that's your thing, take shots if that's your thing. Those are all my things. But, you know what I'm saying? And you just relax. You unwind. You think about, the last 6 months, the last 12 months, things that went good, things that went bad, things you could have done better. You know what I'm saying? You got time to like just meditate, just pray, just thank God for everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'll pull that tent out. You know what I'm saying? I'll be up there, doing my thing. Putting my drone up, whipping it. But yeah, man, that's the show for the day. Terry Bradshaw, man, you bugging, big homie. Go sit your old ass down somewhere though, cause the disrespect is it's obvious and it's blatant, and it's getting kind of annoying because, you know, as you get older, man, like you shouldn't grow up to be just an old hater, man. Like that shit is whack. You know, I don't agree with everything that younger generation does, but they do some fly shit. Like I ain't gonna lie. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, I wish we had some of the technology and stuff and access to information that they have now. But I miss, you know what I'm saying, my upbringing was a little slower. You know, now kids are growing up so fast, you know what I mean? And it's just like, you know, if they have, you know, a crappy situation, you know, they grow up even faster. So, but yeah, that's the show, man. I appreciate y'all checking into the break room. It's your boy, Mr. Wilson, and I'm signing off. You dig?